After my trip through Botswana, I had a short amount of time in Johannesburg, so I wanted to check out the city and, of course, learn more about this amazing man, Nelson Mandela. If you're interested in seeing the house where Nelson Mandela lived before he was arrested and sent to prison, but also the house he returned to after he spent 27 years in prison, then you can visit it in Soweto. It's amazing to think that in this living room, Nelson Mandela would have sat, and you would have thought about how he was going to change South Africa to make it a fairer place for people of all races. And this is his bedroom. As you can see, it's quite a modest house. This was the place that Nelson Mandela returned to after his time in prison, and that he said when he arrived he knew that he'd finally left prison and was home. To be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. The Apartheid Museum was opened in 2001, and it was built to remember and acknowledge 20th century South Africa and to illustrate both the rise and the fall of apartheid. Even the entrance really puts you off guard, because as you read that and you see the segregation, the whites and the non-whites, there is a part of you that subconsciously feels that you have to follow the instructions and fit into the categories that are being put before you. So I can't imagine what it would have been like to have lived in a country where there was such segregation based on the colour of your skin, because inherently you feel like you should follow the instructions of a sign, and that kind of conditioning can really get into your consciousness. Desmond Tutu played an incredibly significant role in the ending of apartheid, and he was actually the second South African to win the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts to end apartheid. So this Mercedes-Benz was presented to Nelson Mandela after he was released from prison, and it was from the Mercedes-Benz plant in East London, South Africa, and was designed as a gift to pay tribute to him. And the red colour was to represent the blood spilled by South Africans in the struggle against apartheid. And of course, the incredibly significant and iconic wearing of the Springbok jersey when South Africa won the Rugby World Cup that they hosted in 1995, which was a massive gesture of reconciliation for a sport that was predominantly supported and played by the white population of South Africa. To see Nelson Mandela embrace it and support it, and then for them to be successful and win it, it kind of shows the magic that surrounded him and his story and why his legacy lives on.
Provision for campaign of non-cooperation with the government, and we are presently starting plans to implement this aspect of the rule.
Now, if Dr. Verwoerd's government doesn't give you the kind of concessions that you want sometime soon, is there any likelihood of violence?
There are many people who feel that the reaction of the government to our stay at home, ordering a general mobilization, arming the white community, arresting 10,000 of Africans, the show of force throughout the country. Notwithstanding our clear declaration that this campaign is being run on peaceful and non-violent lines, close the chapter as far as our methods of political struggle are concerned. There are many people who feel that it is useless and futile for us to continue talking peace and non-violence against a government whose reply is only savage attacks on an unarmed and defenseless people. And in light of our experiences in this stay at home, whether the methods which we have applied so
And whilst Nelson Mandela gets a lot of credit and accolades for his role, the struggle was built on the back of many South Africans and many people internationally. We can't forget the role that Winnie herself played. It was a struggle that cost many people's lives, and many of the people who died in this struggle, nobody remembers their name. But hopefully, through preserving this history, through the Apartheid Museum, there can be a sense of remembrance for the people who had to struggle so much just to make people's lives better today. In this half of the museum, it focuses less on Nelson Mandela and more on the broader struggle in the apartheid system. We briefly just saw the flag of South Africa at the time, which was a combination of the British flag and the Dutch flag, and it had the flags of the Transvaal and the Orange Free State in the centre of it. And this was the flag that existed before and during the apartheid era. In 2019, this flag was actually declared illegal for public display.
Is that I didn't understand. I feel sorry to come back and someone specific function fly. What you speech basis for did you achieve? Want to touch
The Apartheid regime and for power to pass into the hands of the people as a whole.
And must struggle to us meant that we need to challenge these security forces openly, head on, face them, even if how armed that day. We need to go down there and make our point yet. And that was a point of no return. In the townships, young people rendered the streets ungovernable. This ungovernability was a mixed blessing for the political leaders. Many of the young lives were beyond their control.
They know only one language, the language of the Casbah. We have no arms. We have stones. We have boxes of matches.
Unless the South African government acts decisively to meet the conditions required for negotiations with the anti-apartheid opposition, The international sanctions public will have to get this sanctions intensified.
I was talking with Nelson Mandela's lawyer yesterday. We did an interview together. And even I was not to say skeptical, but I was misinformed about the strength of sanctions. And he's saying to me over and over and over again, it works. So if there's any message I can say to people, it works. Sanctions. The people of the world are looking at
I think what this part of the museum really showed me was that what helped South Africa make this change was actually the global support and global pressure on South Africa, the boycotting of it as a state and the treatment of it as a pariah that ultimately left them with no other option but for their own survival to make changes. And I think in our present day situation, a similar thing will have to take place in order to force nations to act in more peaceful and civil ways with each other.
How big the sky on the world. The sun shine never set on so glorious a human ship.
I call first Mrs. Nabantu or Joyce Mtumkulu to the stand, please. I will ask you, do you solemnly swear that the evidence you will give before this commission today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you very much. Please be seated.
We got married. I was here in Port Elizabeth. And then we were blessed with children. Our marriage was one of the peaceful and very dignified type of marriage.
The price of freedom is eternal vigilance, and there is no way in which you can assume that yesterday's oppressed will not become tomorrow's oppressors. When politics fails, often people resort to expressing themselves and their political beliefs through art. So I've just finished here at the Apartheid Museum, and it was a very poignant and pointed reminder of just how volatile and inhumane the system of apartheid was. You understand the historical context, how it formed, and the oppressive systems, the forms of supremacy that came about. And out of this system of injustice came struggle, sacrifice, but it serves as a reminder for us today, and it's given us characters like Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu, who went through that struggle with a great deal of dignity and courage and sacrifice, most importantly, and they can serve as lessons for us today, because we definitely need that from our political leaders now. A sense of dignity and responsibility and sacrifice. Unfortunately, we don't seem to have a lot of that. And when you think about the current systems of injustice that we have and the growing sense of division among different types of people and nations, religions, we need to find a way to come together again. So that's the reason why I came here, is because I wanted to learn about it, and I want to be reminded of how these systems have changed, how things, whilst not perfect, have got better, and how we can learn from that today. I think one of the things that stands out for me today is this idea of responsibility. I think when all is said and done, with the conflict in the Middle East and the oppressive system of Israel on Palestine, there will be a need for responsibility and reconciliation. Responsibility for Israel's part, USA's part, and all the leaders involved from all the sides, including Palestine, will have to find ways to come together, be brave, and find ways to reconcile some of the things that have gone on. Because as we saw in South Africa, some of these crimes that were committed are so heinous that they really stir emotion to people nowadays who weren't even involved. Just seeing some of these images from apartheid system, it's really gut-wrenching. Really gut-wrenching. Yesterday I went to a site and Hector Peterson, a young boy, was shot, and a photographer got a photo of it. And the boy who found the dying child picked him up, carried him away, was in the photo for just carrying the boy, had to leave the country for the fear of what would happen to him. Imagine that, feeling persecuted just because you helped a dying person. But that's the lengths that oppressive systems go to hide the truth. And I do wonder if the future of countries like Israel, the United States, even Britain, for all the things that they've done, whether there will be monuments, memorials, museums to remember and take responsibility for taking part in atrocities against other human beings. Because until people accept responsibility, they're never going to change. And unfortunately, a lot of the narratives nowadays are driven by people who don't think they're the bad guys. They think they're justified in what they're doing. And all killing is wrong. Causing harm to other human beings is wrong. And I hope that we can move forward, and that out of all of these struggles there can be new heroes and new movements that give people a sense of hope. And I hope that future isn't too far away. So as I get caught in the rain, I'm going to think more about what we can learn from the past. And I suppose one final thing, a quote that I saw was by Desmond Tutu. Hopefully I can remember it, but it was about how true freedom is about remembering and never forgetting that the once oppressed should never become the oppressors. And I think that is particularly poignant to this moment that we're living in today. Two wrongs don't make a right, and an eye for an eye makes the world go blind. So let's hope we can find a way to take responsibility and achieve reconciliation.